Good morning. Today is Wednesday, December 30th, 2020. What I'd like to share with you this morning is partially based on an essay by Rabbi Matisyahu Salomon. One of the most famous lines in all of Jewish writing throughout all of history. And also, it is one of the most important lessons Judaism teaches in how to go through life, is the verse, the pasuk in Tehillim, in Psalms, written by David HaMelech, King David. Hashem roi lo echsar. God is my shepherd. I shall not want. I'm not missing anything. I'm not lacking anything because God is my shepherd. That image, as famous as it is based on a verse in our Parsha, the Parsha Vayechi. Near the end of Yaakov's life, the Torah says, Vayomer liYosef, hinei avicha choleh. Yosef was told that his father was sick. We spoke about that recently. So Yosef comes to visit with his two sons, and there's an exchange between Yaakov and Yosef and his sons. I'm hoping to talk about that tomorrow night. And then, Vayevarech es Yosef. Then Yaakov gives a bracha to Yosef. Vayomar, and he says, Ho'elakim asher hishalchu avosai lefanav, Avraham v'Yitzchak. God, who guided my fathers, Avraham and Yitzchak, Ho'elakim haroeh osi meodi ad hayom hazeh, God, who shepherded me from the beginning of my life until today, Hamalach hagoel osi mikol ra, the angel who protects from all evil, Yevarech es hana'arim, bless the children. We discussed Hamalach hagoel yesterday, but let's just focus on the middle part, because this is the first usage of this image of God as a shepherd. Ho'elakim haroeh osi meodi ad hayom hazeh, God who shepherded me my entire life up until this moment. Then 1,000 years later, when David comes to write Tehillim, he utilizes this metaphor and he writes, Hashem roi lo echsar, God is my shepherd. The Medrash points this out explicitly to say that when Yaakov in our Parsha refers to God as a shepherd, it was revolutionary. It had never been done before because it seems improper. Rabbi Chana bar Chanina makes the following statement. Now, I'm not a shepherd. I don't know anyone personally who is a shepherd. I hope nobody will take this the wrong way, but this is the statement that is made in the Medrash by Rabbi Chana bar Chanina. He says that the profession, the job of being a shepherd is an omnis bezuya. It's not a good job. It's an insult to call someone a shepherd, because it's the lowest kind of job there is. First of all, you're all alone, and in the summer it's hot, and in the winter it's cold, and the animals are smelly, and they don't listen, and it's not a nice profession. So to call God a shepherd would sound like it's an insult. It sounds like, okay, I don't want to insult anybody else, but in your own mind, just think of whatever job you think of as the lowest of the low. Cleaning out the sewers, I don't know, the lowest of the low. And you say, God is the one who cleans out the sewers. It doesn't sound nice. It's not appropriate. So the Medrash says the reason David wrote the line, Hashem roi lo echzar, is because he learned from Yaakov. Yaakov called God a shepherd. If Yaakov can call God a shepherd, then David can call God a shepherd. So let's ask this question. Why is Yaakov the first person to call God a shepherd? And why is it specifically at this moment when he is giving this bracha to his son Yosef? So the answer that Rav Solomon provides is an insight. If you look at last week's Parsha, Parshas Vayigash, and this week's Parsha, the Parsha Vayechi, which is the end of the book of Bereshis, you see within Yaakov a transition, a transformation within Yaakov from last week's Parsha to this week's Parsha. In last week's Parsha Vayigash, when Yaakov learns that Yosef is still alive, Yaakov and his entire family make their way down to Mitzrayim, and Yaakov stands in front of Paro, Yosef's boss. So Paro says to Yaakov, Vayomer Paro al Yaakov, Paro says to Yaakov, Kama yemei chayecha, how old are you? Sounds like it's kind of, how old are you? Just a normal civil question. Yaakov did not give a normal, simple, civil answer. Vayomer Yaakov al Paro. Yaakov said to Paro, Yemei shenei megurai shloshim u'ma'ah shana. The number of years that I've been living so far is 130. Ma'at v'roim hayu yemei shenei chayoy. The years of my life have been few and painful, bad, difficult. Maybe he was explaining to Paro why he looked older than he actually was. First of all, I think most of us would say 130 is not so bad. That's a lot of years. But for Yaakov, it was not many years. He considered it that it was not many years. And he says to Paro, the reason I look the way I look is because I've had a miserable life. And we know about the things that have happened that contributed to Yaakov feeling that he's had a miserable life. All the things negative that happened in his life. That was in last week's Parsha. In this week's Parsha, we see within Yaakov a completely different attitude. There is a transformation. And by the way, before we go any further, this in itself is a very important lesson that even at an advanced age, 130 years old, Yaakov can go through a spiritual transformation. No matter what age we are, just because we are where we are, we do not have to stay like that. We can grow. We can develop even at an advanced stage. But in our Parsha, Parshas Vayechi, Yaakov has a revelation. He says, now I look back on my life, and this is 17 years later, just before he passes away. Now, 17 years after I made that statement about having lived a miserable life, now I look back on my life, and I see that everything that happened to me was part of a plan. Because there is a shepherd. And that's what a shepherd does. A shepherd leads the flock. Now, when the shepherd's leading the flock don't understand what the shepherd is doing. The flock may very well think, why is the shepherd taking us away from this nice water and this comfortable place and leading us somewhere else? And it seems very rocky and very difficult. The sheep don't know what the shepherd knows, that near the nice, cool stream, there's a wolf that poses a grave danger. And so the shepherd, if the shepherd is doing his job, he's moving the sheep to a safer place. But the sheep don't realize that because the sheep don't have the full view. The shepherd, of course, understands. It could very well be that the sheep never realize why they had been led in this manner. But Yaakov was able, at the end of his life, to see, you know what? I complained. I said my life was miserable, but it was wrong. I was wrong. In fact, God is a shepherd. And though I did not understand at the time, and I perceived what happened at the time as miserable and bad and difficult, but now I see God is a shepherd. Every single thing that happened was for a reason that set about allowing God's plan to unfold, and everything that happened was for my best interest. It was for my benefit. And I see now the mistake that I made in last week's Parsha when I characterized my life as miserable. No. Hashem haroeh osi. God has been shepherding me. God has been guiding me. Everything that happened turned out to be for my benefit. And it's extremely appropriate that Yaakov shares this insight for the first time with Yosef. Because Yosef is a person who learns this lesson. Yosef is a person. It would be hard to think of anyone in the Torah that has as much reason to be bitter, to be upset with his family. His brothers sold him into slavery and then he went into prison. He would have all logical right to bear a grudge against them, to try to get back at them, to be upset with them, to be angry. But the only thing that we see from Yosef is a completely different approach. And I shared this with you last Thursday night from last week's Parsha, but listen to it in this week's Parsha, near the end of the Parsha. When Yaakov passes away finally at the end of the Parsha, so now the brothers are very, very afraid, because even though from the time Yosef revealed himself to them, Yosef was kind to them, and Yosef did say that he forgave them, and he invited them all down, and he took care of them. But now the brothers were afraid maybe he only did that because their father was alive. Once their father is gone, who's going to protect them? Maybe Yosef has a plan. Now he is going to take retribution for what we did to him. And so the brothers come to Yosef and they say to him, we ask your forgiveness and please don't continue to be upset with us. Vayomer aleim Yosef. And Yosef says to them, this is after Yaakov passed away, Al tiro, don't be afraid. Ki atachas Elokim ani, am I am in place of God? Am I one to be able to supersede God's plan? Atem chashavtem alai ra. Your intention was to harm me by selling me. Yes, I recognize that. But Elokim choshava l'tova. God intended that to be for good. For not only for your good, even for my good. Leman aso kayom hazeh lachios amrav. I was put in a position, not that I wanted to be, not that it happened in a nice way, but I was put into a position where I was able to create the structure that everyone is now alive because of what I did, the plan of providing for the years of famine. Viata al tiro, and Yaakov says, don't be afraid. Yosef says to his brothers, don't be afraid. Anochi achal keleskem, I'm going to provide for you, I'm going to take care of you. You have nothing to worry about. Because all of this was part of God's ultimate plan. Because God was a shepherd. Yosef understands, as his father hoped that he would, when he gave this bracha to Yosef, Hashem roi, that God is a shepherd, that though he leads the sheep to places where the sheep do not understand why they're there and do not want to be there, but he recognizes the shepherd knows better. Yaakov's bracha to Yosef gave Yosef this ability to see what he had happened as part of the plan of the shepherd. And we need to take Yosef's bracha for ourselves. We need to take this outlook in the way we approach our lives. Hashem roi lo echzor. It doesn't mean what happens to us will not be bad or miserable or painful. All those things unfortunately happen. It means that we will experience them differently. Because if you can take this lesson from Yosef, to see God as a shepherd who only wants the best for you, even if we don't see it, we will be able to handle anything in life. That's the bracha that Yaakov gives to Yosef. That's the bracha that David shares with all of us. If we can internalize that, our lives will be more like Yaakov's in our Parsha Vayechi, and less like Yaakov's in the Parsha before of Vayigash. I wish it for you, and I wish it for me. My friends, have a wonderful day. Please stay safe and healthy, and I look forward to seeing all of you soon in person.